This dream was on the. Well, actually, the stream was last night. We had a big storm, tornado warnings, and stuff like that. So I had to go in the basement. And usually I've noticed when I get disrupted sleep and I go back to bed, if it's like within like a few hours where I have to wake up anyways for work, I tend to have very vivid dreams. And I don't know why. It just seems when that happens. Well, okay, getting into the dream. I just kind of woke up. Wasn't in my bed. Just kind of woke up like I was just standing in my own house, and I realized I had plans on the traveling to visit a friend. I didn't know where I was going at the time. But next thing I know, I'm in the airport. Just kind of like in a fast forward tunnel-like vision. It just kind of like everything around me is in a blur, moving really fast around me, but I feel like I'm moving slow. But at the same time, I'm moving through the airport kind of a fast forward. Like I don't know if it was unimportant that I was going through the annoyance of TSA and practically being strip searched like they do every time. Like I swear that's just a way to get you down. Was I get on the plane, I didn't know where I was going, but I was on the plane for a short bit, just kind of resting in a window seat, just gazing down at the clouds below, just flying over the ocean, a lot of glistening light. I always like window seats. Next thing you know, I teleported off the airplane, and I was outside of the airport, the destination airport, and it seemed like I had traveled to New Zealand, and I was going there to visit an old friend of mine that I supposedly had never known. I didn't know who this person was, but supposedly they were a good friend of mine. I just appear out at kind of like the loading unloading area, and there's just a car there for me. I had a set of keys in my hands. So I climb on into the car. It was a white, and it was kind of like a hybrid car, kind of like a crossover, but not. It was a little weird. But I climb in, and I just start driving towards my supposed friend's house. Don't know where I'm at, don't know where I'm going, but for some reason I'm just driving straight down some main road, and I guess I'm supposed to get there that way. One of the things I had noticed is all the roads there were made of dirt. The main path was just firm. It just seemed like very firmly compacted dirt. That it was developed, just compacted, smooth and firmly, with a lot of side trails and side roads kind of running parallel alongside me, going the same direction, opposite directions, but just kind of a little bit on the chaotic side. They were almost just kind of like, it was just a confusing mess of just dirt roads. The one I was on was compacted and for the most part smooth, but the others were just a bit chaotic, very bumpy, lumpy, just unkempt, I guess. Something you would find like on a dirt bike trail, just tore up. On my drive there, I kept passing many different cars, just different people walking on, I guess you'd call them sidewalks. They were kind of sharing the same areas, the kind of the side paths that other cars were, for some reason, deciding to drive down these really bumpy side roads instead of on the smooth one, but yet sharing it with people just walking and riding bicycles and just I don't know. There's like mounds of dirt everywhere. There was green and shrubbery and grass and trees, but it varied as I drove. They were all staring at me, though. Every person in every car and every bicycle, just everyone down these dirt sidewalkway paths as I drove past. The entire drive, they were, as I would pass, coming up on them, I would see them staring at me, and as I would pass them and look behind me, their heads are following and staring at me all the while. It was It was really weird, a bit kind of on the creepy side. I kept just feeling this ever-growing sensation that I'm being adjudged, or almost as if I was unaware of what was wrong, but there was something wrong. I figured that maybe I was driving odd. Um, it was a different country. I had never been there, and maybe I was on the wrong side of the dirt, but I was kind of following the occasional traffic, so I really didn't think that was the issue. But after a good long while, I arrived at my friend's house. It was up on a hill down the road from, for some reason, I had wrote down a grand dirt intersection. It was just, I guess it was big. Again, with two main crossroads that were larger, developed, firmly packed dirt, and then just a chaotic mess of other trails and side roads just kind of intersecting all over the place. Very confusing. Upon exiting the car, I am waved by my friend up on the hill next to the house to come on up. He was very excited to see me. I'm waving back, and I didn't have any bags on me, I guess. I leave the car, didn't even turn the car off or take the keys. And as I go up, I reach my hand out to shake my friend's hand, and he grabs my hand, but then pulls me in the hug. And for some reason, I know his name is Chadrick. I don't know anyone named Chadrick, but for some reason, I just knew his name all of a sudden. He welcomed me into his home. He had a lot of roommates about. Just he was the owner of the house, is what I had got. Just for some reason, I knew he was the owner of the house. But there were several young men about in their 20s. Some of them all the way up into their 60s, maybe even a little bit older. I'm not entirely sure. Some of their faces were not detailed. I guess it's probably the best way to describe it. I could kind of judge an age, or I knew an age, but just actual identities, it's like I couldn't process it. They had faces, but I could not really see them. For the most part, they were all seemingly normal, other than some of them not really having faces. They were all kind, introducing themselves to me. And just after we kind of broke the ice and introduced myself, where I came from, I had this urge to bring up that on the entire drive there, I was being stared at. Everyone was staring at me, and I felt judged. And I'm like, hey, what could that have been about? This is the side of the road I was driving on. This is how I was driving. Just explaining how I would drive normally. And they all just started chuckling. No, and not in the kind of a making fun of me, just kind of a hearty, welcome to our country kind of like laugh, just humorous. And they all pointed to the car. So I turn around and just look at I guess it was like a rental car that I had. And I don't know how I did not notice this before, but it was dragging a large gray beard from the front of it, just kind of like where the front fender area and grating would be, where the radiators at. Just had this big flowing gray beard that was like larger than the car, just kind of dangling underneath and behind it, like a good, like, I don't know, it was like 20 feet behind it. One of them walked up to me and chuckled. Those are used to smooth the dirt out as you drive. He said it was a common prank pulled on new visitors to the new land. They didn't say New Zealand, it's a new land. That very specifically stuck out. We all kind of had a hefty chuckle together. In fact, I was chuckling a little bit too hard because I found it funny. And odd at the same time that was a prank that their country pulls on new people. They're all laughing more. I'm laughing still, and I just started drooling some for some reason. They're all laughing, and then in return, they all start drooling as well for some reason. I'm unsure why, but we didn't really drool for long. But it seemed fun. They were having fun, I guess. After we just kind of calmed down a little bit, we just all started to continue the talk. I had asked about the dirt roads and the randomness of them, and how confused I was that this is supposed to be a developed country. It's just weird that everything was dirt, and most of them were these like chaotic trails all alongside of it. People were using more than the flat ones. Just different paths of various bumpiness. Hills, divots in the road for where tires have kind of dug in muddy areas. Some of it almost looked impassable, regardless that there were small sedans and stuff somehow going through it. One of them kind of chuckled and all he said was, "Yeah, out here we pretty much drive wherever we feel like it." And that was the only answer I got on it. I thought that was kind of funny, a little strange, but funny that, hey, actually, that's kind of cool. Just whatever. Just try however you want. Just don't be a douchebag. Next thing I know, I kind of snapped to, or maybe it was like a time jump or something. But I found myself helping cooking food. I believe it was a dinner. I think the time I had arrived at the house was like sometime around noon, but now it was probably like 7 p.m. or something in the evening. But I was helping cook a meal. I was unsure exactly what it was. The initial glance at what I was cooking seemed like a soup of some sort. That was also somehow solid, like a meat patty. It makes no sense to me. It was a soup, but a solid meat patty, but yet sloppy like a sloppy Joe. It was very tasty, though. I do know that. Like, I went back for seconds. I can't quite describe the taste. It was like multiple tastes in one. It was like a chili paired with a hamburger, paired with like the most exquisite seasoned chicken I've ever had. I don't know. It was weird, but it was good. So after we all finished eating, I helped clean up. I'm talking to various other people. Again, most of them don't have faces. Only a couple of them do. My friend, for one, one of the oldest men in there, he had a face as well. Kind of black hair. He was old, but yet he looked young at the same time. That's kind of weird. After we cleaned up, they start showing me around. I hadn't really checked out the house. It seemed quite sizable. None of the rooms kind of made sense. They were like different shapes and sizes with like weird pillars and stuff like that. But that's usually what I expect to see in dreams anyways. They had a lot of nice pottery, a lot of handmade pottery too. If I understood right, one of the younger men there, as a hobby, likes making pottery, has one of those turnstile tables, and will craft pots and cups and plates by hand, and tosses them in the kiln with a glaze. And that's the dishes they use. Is the dishes that the young man makes for everyone, all handmade stuff. I really dig that type of that thing. I got several dishware like that myself from a old potter that I grew up next door to. They continue showing me around, and we come across a very specific picture that caught my eye. Well, it really wasn't a picture. It looked like an oil painting. Yet again, this is another common thing that seems to come up in recent dreams, was that same canine dragon-like creature is what the picture depicted. It's like a mix of a wolf with a dragon, but it's fuzzy. It's covered in fur, long claws, has these tiger-like coloration and stripes. Out of all the paintings in there, it was very exquisitely painted, very high detailed. They had noticed I took a fancy to it. I was looking at it more than anything else, and the old man with the black hair started smiling. And he said, "This one has been waiting for you. Please take it. They are part of a long ago past of yours." Um, at the time, I didn't really quite process what he was saying. But after, when I was writing the dream down, I was realizing maybe he's talking about a past life of some sort. But in the dream, I reach forward and welcomely take the art piece. My senses suddenly began to just fire and trigger the second I had touched the painting. I had grabbed it on the frame with both hands. All my fingers began to just pulse and vibrate. And that vibration started to slowly work its way up my hands, like along the bones, and then the muscles and tendons were kind of vibrating, not really twitching, but it kind of felt like it. And all the while, the frame of the oil painting began to shimmer and shift, almost as if it was liquid, but yet I was holding on to it as if it was a solid object. Warmth started radiating out from the painting, which then somehow imparted its way into my hands through my fingertips, which worked the vibrations further up my wrists. And once it passed my wrist bones, it was simultaneously both arms. It just suddenly shot upwards, like instantly shot upwards, up through my arms, to my shoulders, and started pulsing outwards from the shoulders. It was weird, like energy or something was just pouring out from my shoulder tops in an outward kind of swooping pattern. I didn't feel shocked or scared, just kind of like transfixed, I guess. Maybe it was even like hypnotized. I'm not entirely sure. Just transfixed on what was going on. And suddenly a stabbing feeling occurred on both sides of me that shot towards my heart very aggressively, like latching on, and then almost it felt like something was being unlocked, not like trapped or flooded or constricted. It just felt like something had opened. I just suddenly felt this very, very powerful sensation of just an embracing presence within. It just, this warm sensation of, the only thing I can describe it is fur began wrapping up from behind me, spilling out from my shoulder blade region and just melting around towards the front of my chest and down my body and arms, just tightly enveloping me as if it was a second skin almost. I'm not entirely sure how long that was going on, but I'm just suddenly snapped out of, I guess it was like a trance I was in, by the friend I was there to visit. The oil painting I had grasped my hand was no longer there. My arms still felt fuzzy, a sensation of, the only thing I can describe would be long, sharp claws present, but yet visibly I could not see anything there, but I could feel them at the tips of my fingers. I just didn't really focus on that at all. And next thing I know, I'm just kind of shaking off the new sensations. They're still there. They're not really going anywhere. And visually, I just look like myself, but physically, I feel something different. I just snap back into just, I guess, the character who I was in this dream, and back to what I was previously doing before seeing the art of the creature. We just kind of went back to I was being shown around, but instead of that old man with the black hair, who like he was old, but he wasn't. Instead of him there with me, he was now off on the other side of the room, just sitting on a reclining chair with some sort of beer in hand and looking through a magazine, just with this very relaxed look on him. But now he also had a beard, very similar to beards I've been seeing on other dream characters and past dreams I've been sharing. My friend guided me back around the house a few more times, and we're just talking, catching up, what games we should play when I get back. And next thing I know, a lot of time had passed. I'm not sure how much time had passed. It could have been days. It could have been weeks. I'm just unsure how much time had passed, but I had this sense that time had passed. A decent amount of time at that. Next thing I know, I'm being walked back out to my car. I'm giving my friend a hug. It's like I was happy to have finally met in person, a friend that I guess at this point, I guess I've known them online for a decade. And we just kind of stare at the car. It's still sitting out front. It's still running. And it's that giant beard, the giant car beard was still there. And we couldn't help but just chuckle loudly. How hysterical and just hilariously dumb the whole thing was. I climb in the car, wave off to everyone up at the house, and on my way back to the airport, I was going to embrace the joke that the new land decided to play on me, and I chose the roughest path back to the airport. It was to smooth that road as best as I could, as kind of a thank you for the interesting, fun time I had. I'll return something back, and the least I can do is fix one of these roads by dragging the beard across it on my way back to the airport. And from there, I had woke up, and that's my dream.